Okay, good morning. Well, this is the final live in this current series, and with the help of some brilliant friends over the past few weeks, I've been diving into topics that feature in my new book, which is now available on Amazon in paperback, Kindle, and audio format. I've done it. Andy, you've come out the other side of book publishing. It's okay after it's all done, isn't it?
Well, I haven't done as many as you. One was enough, nearly killed me. So, yeah, thanks to you.
I'm blocking that out. So it is now available on Amazon, and I will put the link in the chat. In these LinkedIn Live series, I've covered legal issues, knowing your why, organizational change, driving website traffic. Last week, talked about search engines versus social search. If you've missed any of them, I will share links as well. But today's topic, something I'm now thinking, I'm not thinking about writing an entire book on this. One, it would be impossible because it's changing so quickly.
Yeah.
It's changing so quickly. Oh, I could use AI to write it, I guess. We'll talk about that. Today, we are talking about how AI is changing social media marketing. Now, if you haven't met Andy and I before, we'll introduce ourselves properly in a minute. We've been co-hosting a monthly webinar for over 2 years, possibly nearly even 3 now, I think, where every month, the last Thursday of every month, we share all the latest data, trends, analysis, insights, and updates to the social media platforms. And in those updates, there are always a few core themes, from content creators to monetization, that we regularly discuss. And of course, this year there has been feature updates around AI. And I think, Andy, as you mentioned in your social media post this morning, we should probably do a deeper dive on that at some point. And today is that time. Andy, for people that haven't met you, do you want to intro yourself first?
Yeah, absolutely. Keep it short.
Yeah.
I'm Andy. So my interest in social media dates back to when I co-founded a company called Content Cal, which is a social media marketing platform, about 8 years ago now, I think. Grew that to becoming one of the fastest growing social media management platforms in the market. And then we were approached by Adobe, hence the logo on my hoodie, approached by Adobe in 21 to buy the business. So, which was kind of incredible. And now we work at Adobe and building all of the social media management functions inside of a product called Adobe Express. Wrote a book on social media too, which you'll find, called Social 3.0. And yes, and of course, working at Adobe means lots of AI stuff is at work. So I'm going to touch on some of that stuff today. So anyway, that's me. Yeah, I look forward to connecting on LinkedIn. And yeah, back to you, Luan.
Thank you. Yeah, and if we haven't met before, so apart from writing books, I am also a marketing practitioner. I have worked in agencies, client side, and run my own consultancy business for 12 years now, and have a really nice mix of working with clients, supporting and advising clients directly, mainly B2B, and also teaching and training on these topics as well. And as I said, Andy and I think we spend most of our times keeping up to date with what's changing, so that we try and do a lot of work and thinking on behalf of all the social media managers that are out there doing this on a day-to-day basis. We know how hard it is and how much you need this kind of information and insight. So hopefully with kind of what's happening in the world of AI, and this also couldn't be more topical, could it? When we set this date, we did not know that there would be an AI safety summit with over 100 leaders, 28 countries putting together an agreement on how to collectively understand and manage all of this. So I've had a quick look at the news this morning. It is in the headlines. We will try and talk throughout this session about both the opportunities and the risks.
Definitely.
So we're not experts. We always try and say we're not experts because things are changing so fast. I'm certainly not a techie to know how these AI tools work. I think both of us, we're learning at the same time as everyone else, but also kind of trying to digest of how useful is this and where are we going with this. And in preparation for this, I was thinking about the tools that I use, and Grammarly, Otter, I've been using tools like that for a long time. Of course, this year, our feeds have been inundated with ChatGPT and what that's all about, and prompts and advice. I certainly use ChatGPT. I'm using Bard, Elicit, Alt Text AI, and probably lots of others without even realizing I'm using them. And yeah, there is so many tools out there. So they're the kind of ones that I've started to use and think about. Where are you on this topic, Andy?
It's honestly, I'm not sure I could say I've committed to any as part of my workflow yet, because I'm testing all the time. I think this is a very exciting time. Whenever there's a new kind of form factor within an industry, whether it's like the telephone, the internet, AI, generative AI in particular, like there is that area or that time frame of like exploration and innovation, which is a really exciting time that we're at right now. So there are so many tools that are appearing, as we all know, but I just don't think they're quite in their finished state yet. So I'm very much in like testing mode of playing with all of these things. And honestly, my workflow hasn't changed dramatically outside of the obvious stuff of ChatGPT, ideation, the kind of things that everyone kind of gets. But there are some tools that I am more excited about than others, of which, you know, we'll focus a bit on tools today, and I'll share screen and talk through some of the ones that I am really excited about the potential of, certainly like helping us create better content faster. So there's some cool stuff coming. It's just not quite finished yet.
I think that's really interesting, is that we're both reading about it. And I know that sometimes we look at features and trends when we share them every month by kind of going, you don't need to jump on this immediately. You don't need to change everything you're doing. This, you know, is something to be aware of and think about. And actually, I have started to implement some of these, I guess, into my workflows, and I do see them as quite a productivity tool. I love those, and I'll share. In writing my book, I have had ChatGPT open and asked it questions, asked it for examples, asked it to kind of review paragraphs as well. And I think in part that's because I work alone, and I felt like I was having, I have a colleague there and I can debate a topic, and that I can do it in real time as well and say, oh, that's nice, but how about a B2B example? Or actually, no, a smaller business or something in the software sector. So I like that kind of real time. It's not like an email exchange. I can stay in that thought process as well. So I think I've probably shifted my use of like Googling, other search engines are available, but kind of from search to using ChatGPT and other tools as like a real research assistant in what I'm doing, and summarizing articles and looking for examples. So support on the kind of the thinking and the researching, but I know that people watching this are probably using them very much in their day-to-day work as well, and that's some of the tools that we want to explore. So if you are watching this session live, and I can see that there are many people watching this live, there is a live chat. There is only 2 of us. We don't have an external moderator, so we'll try and keep an eye on it. But please do share the tools that you're using, your experiences, your thoughts as well, because the chat will stay live after this session, so we can all have a look at that as well. My go-to, there is an AI tools directory that I tend to, you know, think about my workflow, and it's like, oh, actually, I wonder if there's a tool for that. And that's often my approach with social media tools and apps as well, is kind of almost thinking, what's the tool for that, rather than trying to digest all these blogs and articles of like, here's 5 tools you should be using, and trying to fit something in. So a tools directory is where I go. We are not going to go through platform feature by feature today. I have prepared a blog written by me, not an AI, earlier, because it's too current. So I will pop that into the link in a minute. I have put together a blog with what the social media platforms have been doing and adding as features over the last few months. But I think, Andy, you and I try and wrap this up into some core themes. So what have you seen around all the features that are the core themes coming through?
Yeah. So it's a way of just trying to keep, because I'm not the brightest guy in the world, so I try and keep things as simple as possible, because things are happening all the time. As we know, like we can easily report 80 plus social media updates of a month, which is, and that's you and I spending all of our time thinking, well, most of our time thinking about this, and you know, this is what we do. So for a social media manager, that is super hard to keep on top of it. However, the good thing is, despite all of the news and all the changes, they typically orientate around like key themes. And I think, you know, if we look at the trajectory, at least over the course of 2023 and where things are going, they broadly go into like 3 core themes, and we're talking specifically about the social platforms, and that's where we're going to start with in this session today. It's like, what are the social media platforms doing around AI to aid content creation, discovery, ideation, yada yada. So number one is creation tools. So obviously we're going to start there. Some of the things that come to mind, and Luan, like, absolutely chime in at these points. So we saw earlier this year LinkedIn bring in the ability to kind of draft with AI. I have mixed feelings on that, so I'd love to know, because we're running this as a LinkedIn Live. I'm sure many of you watching now will have some thoughts around that. Do you use draft with AI on LinkedIn? Of course, AI, the collaborative. You don't? Go on, Luan.
No, I'm not. I mean, I am some of the AI features on LinkedIn are for premium users. I am a premium user, but I'm not using those prompts. They are available to help you write your profile, particularly your about section. I know that if you start to write a post, it will say, would you like some help with ideas? No, I'm not using those personally yet.
No, me neither personally, but we'll talk more about
nice to have them. Yeah.
So helping with creation there, and Facebook are rolling out similar things as well, just to get you started, because all of these platforms know that one of the things that they need more of is people creating content, right? And we all know that in a lot of instances, ideas holds us back. Is it necessarily the right place to start when you're out of ideas and you need some ideas? Is a kind of composer the right place to start? Potentially not, but we'll see. But generative AI also has played a big part in LinkedIn collaborative articles, which we've spoken about a lot. I quite like this as a thing, Luan, but I see you smiling. So
I knew this would come up, because it was in your Andy does a weekly video of updates, and you put that you're a fan of collaborative articles, and so I'm happy to share. I think the concept of them is interesting, that LinkedIn have kind of obviously used an AI tool to do a first draft of an article, then post it in a feature within LinkedIn, and then invite people to take part in them. I love the idea, but I will share, I had beta access to them quite early on, and I spent some time kind of trying and inputting, and I know that that's rolling out, and some people are getting badges for it, and I think that's all amazing. My reason for kind of almost like halting my experiment with it was I saw a collab article that was around running competitions and how to do that on social media platforms, and as someone that sadly perhaps knows inside out the promotion, the T's and C's and the guidelines from the platforms, I knew that collab article that had been posted was incorrect, to the point that the advice being shared in that article was not legal for some of the terms and conditions around running competitions. So I kind of had a concern that where is the human sense check on that? Then obviously anyone can contribute to that. And are we checking the credibility of those contributions? Now what I'm seeing in my notification is, when you add to a collab article, when people in my network add to them. I saw something the other day around like 700 people had contributed to a collab article. Great to participate. Is anyone reading them? Is anyone using that as a source of content, ideas, input? I asked this on an update session, and I haven't had anyone say to me, yeah, I'm reading the collab articles and it was really useful. So I think perhaps it's still early days, but maybe this comes into that kind of risk consideration element. I knew that there were some mistakes in it. I flagged them, but are we going to get that kind of input around fact checking that we need?
Very interesting. Well, I think like my point to that would be, that's the whole point, right? You get Gen AI comes up with like a core topic, but oftentimes it doesn't have quite the fidelity that someone with the experience understands. So that's where the collaboration piece comes in, and potentially, facilitating new connections with others. Certainly, the updates that I've placed on collaborative articles so far seem to have got reasonable levels of engagement, much higher engagement than I get through comments that I've added. So Yeah, it's a really interesting one. I'm in experimentation mode, like most things, but either way, that's an interesting approach for Gen AI. And I've started to see, and it's nice to see LinkedIn doing something kind of different in this world, right? But also sticking with a creation theme on social media, we've seen like custom stickers and backgrounds for Instagram, so you can start making your Insta stories look unique and different. And something else that I particularly like from TikTok as well is the custom AI generated video scripts. So those things are super useful. I'll talk more about like what you could do with these scripts and some cool tools that help you create those too. But that starts to verge more on like real utility, right? Because at the moment, like I said, it's all a bit nascent, it's all a bit experimentation. Some of it's a little bit novel. But it hasn't quite got into like this is essential to use territory as far as like the creation tools perspective goes. That's my take on the first of those themes. What do you reckon, Luan? Anything else you'd add?
No, I just not to add. I mean, because there is so many coming through, and some of them are, like we talk about them each month, like stickers. Is that a big thing? No, but cumulatively it is, and it's changing interaction, and it's trying to make content more engaging, which I think is ultimately the aim, isn't it? Is to the more people that get involved and have conversations, it is putting the social into social media. But going back to your point of like when we're creating content and posting, we're not doing that just as we open up the write a post box on LinkedIn or another platform. Like you, I do my thinking elsewhere, and then it's like, right, it's ready in my head or it's ready drafted somewhere else. Now I'm going to post it. So perhaps that's the challenge. It's a workflow thing then.
Yeah, it definitely is. So a lot more to come around that. And I think the whole ideation piece, there's some cool tools around ideation and thinking about how it fits into a workflow that I'll share later on, which I think makes a lot more sense for how we'll then think about more kind of holistically. If you think, how we come up with ideas, how we progress ideas, how we then publish them and analyze the results. There's better structures around that, I think, than just having a few tools on social media. Anyway, so that's the whole creation theme, and expect to see lots more tools coming up that kind of help give you that either spark of idea or help you, remove writer's block, whether it's video scripts or creating text content from scratch. Secondly is the chat or assistant theme. Let's cover the assistant theme. So this whole thing about AI being an assistant is super useful, right? And I think we all feel safer when we think about AI as a co-pilot or assistant, right? It's not replacing our creativity. It's there. You called it out right at the start, Luan, about it's your colleague, right? It's someone you can bounce ideas off. And that makes a great deal of sense. And I think what we're going to start to see across social platforms, what we're seeing already, Snapchat, seeing good success with My AI, or TikTok with Taco, their kind of assistant there. It's going to change the parameters of how we discover content on social media. Now, this theme is more of a FYI, pay attention to it. You don't need to take any action on it as far as your social media strategy goes. But I certainly think that's going to change the paradigms for how content is discovered. Your last talk around like search versus social, we're starting to see those merge, and we'll see that change again more in the world of social, because if you're looking for a restaurant or the best product to buy, the best table lamp, do you have to wait to be like served that just by chance? Can't you just search it? Or can't you ask your AI assistant on social, what should you do? What's the best product to use? So I'm quite excited about that as a thing, but it's definitely going to require a bit of a rethink as far as like social media strategies over time. That's my take anyway. What about you?
I read an article, I shared it with a friend the other evening in the way that you do, a Harvard Business Review article around using AI tools to support decision making. So I know this is taking us out of social media, but it is still that kind of assistant, isn't it, supporting us, whether I'm using it for research or to overcome the blank page. And there was something in that article, if I recall it now, about almost like where you are on the experience curve. And perhaps this comes back to my thoughts on the collab articles as well, of almost like where you are in your career or in your job role and your knowledge and understanding of the organization or of the topic. In prep for this, I did put into Bard yesterday, how is AI changing the world of social media marketing, to see to see what it came back with. So I think it is that it's a tool for so many reasons, but that kind of supporting decision making. But will we get to the point of almost going, a chatbot is my best friend and he's going to help me through everything I do? I think there's a balance there.
Yeah, it definitely is. And I think there's an interesting like both difference and then convergence between like the assistants that we're just talking about and like the third theme, which is these chatbots, which we're starting to see, right?
Yeah.
So this is the thing I kind of categorize into like initial like novelty value as we start to explore new things, right? It is novel, and it is, I have to put aside some of my natural skepticism with some of these new things. When I look at it, I'm like, what the hell is that? Who needs that? But you know, you start to think now this is just this is V1. It's going to change. It's like looking at Horizon Worlds, you know, for the first time. You would look at that, you know, look at your first experience in the metaverse and be like, good Lord, like who's going to use that? But actually, it's just the first iteration. It's going to change over time. So that's why like keeping an open mind and knowing that we can always change our opinion at any other. I think that is a really important point in like being open-minded with this stuff, is that, you know, we might have opinions on it, but hold them fairly loosely, because things will change very, very quickly. And, you know, quite often I found myself going back on things I've said before and gone, actually,
completely.
I was wrong on that. That's quite good. Anyway, that's a bit of a side narrative. But these chatbots I'm talking about and the kind of novelty value is that Meta have just released a whole bunch of like celebrity influenced chatbots. So you can talk with Kylie Jenner if you want to, which I look at and I'm like, that's novel. It's interesting. What's the utility? And certainly because when I'm thinking about this from like a business social media marketing perspective, I start to think about how can this be appropriate? However, what Meta are also working on are more business orientated chatbots. So businesses can build their own avatars and have their own kind of corporate chatbots, which is not all live now, but you start to think about the trajectory moving forward. And then I start to think, actually, there's a lot of utility in that, because one of the biggest pains on social media, if I'm honest, is like moderating comments, like dealing with trolled bots and all that kind of stuff. And also providing, you know, quick, you know, answers to the questions that audiences need. We can't always be online, nor do we want to. So what about how do chatbots then assist us as, you know, a business in helping consumers get their answers very quickly? Now, in that context, I then start to go, right, that whole chatbot thing suddenly makes a great deal of sense. So none of this is live now. Once again, it's more of an FYI. It will be coming down the track, but I starting to see the utility there. So what do you think?
I mean, there's a mixture, isn't there? If you have a very simple FAQ and you want to self-serve and find that answer with the support of a chatbot, brilliant. I think you're right. It is, you know, we share opinions on our monthly webinars and we don't always agree. And then I'm sure if we rewatched some months later, we'd be going, oh, actually, I have changed my mind on this. We are continually learning, and that is the point. But it's often in B2B, and you and I both talk a lot about B2B, it feels like we are having to take what's happening in B2C worlds and you know, put that business, how could this work for us? How could we use it? How could we engage it? And I think that's always a challenge for marketers in a business world.
Definitely agree. And there's some interesting comments around some of the other concerns around AI, particularly from whether it's like reinforcing stereotypes and also the environmental impact, which is a very interesting area. We will come back to those. I think we'll probably have that as like one of the last things we'll come to in this conversation. But just want to let you know that we definitely want to have some dialogue around that, because it's not all rainbows and unicorns. There's some real considerations here.
There are. Andy, have you got your screen to share with us? Show us some tools.
So cool. Let's do a few tools and stuff. Cool. Can you see this?
No, you need me to press a button. Here we go. There you go.
Yeah, we good?
Yep.
Amazing. All right, cool. So this is something that's in test at the moment, but we were talking about the whole kind of creation theme of on social media. So this is one of the things that are kind of brand new and is coming out very, very soon. It's available on Android right now. is on TikTok, meme creator. So this is great for someone like me who's not very naturally funny. And I don't really come up with memes very easily, and we know that they work really well. So this is an opportunity for you to kind of create your own memes and be suggested the kind of memes that will work and relevant to you. These are the kind of creative tools that then I start to see some real good utility around. So yeah, so TikTok are typically ahead of the curve as far as these creative orientated tools, but I do like that one. Anyway, that's the last of like the kind of social media network orientated stuff. But I touched on a thing earlier. So I'm not affiliated with most of these businesses that I'll talk about. So these are just things that I've kind of experimented with and I quite like. We spoke about a moment ago about like having AI baked into the post composer on LinkedIn being like not really the right place to be prompted for ideas, because social media management or content marketing is bigger than that. You need to be thinking about ideas and strategy and how that plays into your overall perspective and what you're trying to achieve as a business. So naturally, your thinking would probably happen elsewhere. So one of the businesses or products that I quite like in terms of their approach, because they get what kind of marketing looks like from an end-to-end, from ideation, creation to publishing and analysis. They think about that more as a workflow. So, so this tool called PepperType isn't really focused right now on social media, more kind of content marketing. But this is where it gets super useful, because it started to put a whole bunch of different things together, from keyword analysis, because I've tried doing keyword analysis on ChatGPT and the results were terrible, right? It gave me totally incorrect stuff. So then baking in like good keyword analysis. So what's the search volume for a particular segment? What keywords competitors are bidding on, yada, yada. And then putting that into insights as to where do we think we have opportunities. So that's where the real excitement comes from me, because we can all get data. We can all be suggested ideas, but how can we be suggested contextually the right ideas that will yield the right results for us? Which is where insights come in. So here's our kind of keywords. Here's the things that we should be targeting relevant to our industry. Which are the ones that are underserved? Which are the ones that we have the best opportunity to rank for? And then create the first draft of, you know, what that blog post might look like, and then publish that too. So that's where, and obviously do the analysis afterwards. I think this for me is like super powerful. Something like this for social media would be gold.
Yeah.
But yeah, I wanted to share this because I really do like it. Any thoughts you want to add before I kind of move on?
No, I was just going to ask you your thoughts on, you know, we see this in news feeds all the time on, you know, these are prompts you can use. This is how to train your AI tool, and what your thoughts on, if you're using it, do you do that, or are you kind of not worrying so much about what you're putting in to kind of train it?
Yeah, well, I'm going to share this in a second, actually, because I think it's one of those most underutilized things about ChatGPT is something called custom instructions.
Yeah.
Where I'll share this very quickly in a sec, but where we can put in the specifics around our business, our tone, and all that kind of stuff. So I find that really useful in helping get, you know, more realistic and decent results off the back of it. But to be honest, I'm still learning what good prompting looks like.
Yeah.
I think we all are, really. And to be honest with you, what I'm really hoping, and what we're kind of thinking about as well, like as we think from an Adobe perspective, like how can we take away the cognitive load of what a good prompt looks like and do that in the background, and just allow people to put in what they're looking to achieve, and then have, you know, products just do the rest of the heavy lifting, because prompting is a skill in itself, for sure.
So for me, I mean, yeah, it is a skill in itself, and I think this is for me the opportunities and the challenges of the tools, in that actually I'm not using the custom settings, and because I almost want to keep it quite open when I'm using it as a research tool, and to see what it comes back with, so that I'm not kind of filtering into I want this or I want that. So I'm happy for it to be open, and then to kind of almost, as I said, kind of have that feel like I'm having this chat with a colleague going, oh no, actually that wasn't what I was thinking. Could you revise it to this, or could you find an example for that? But I think in terms of those settings, if you were using them for content creation for social media, and particularly across the team, and you're looking for consistency, then I think taking away that thinking and having those settings and putting your tone of voice guidelines and everything else into these tools is going to be what makes them hugely valuable as well.
Definitely agree.
Yeah.
Another tool I'm experimenting with, as you can see, I'm nearly at the end of my trial, so still working through it. So social media analytics called Measure Studio, pop in your channels. So nothing new here. It's an analytics tool, get that. But the thing that's pretty cool is being able to run an AI analysis on getting insights from that data. So where are your opportunities? What are you missing? That kind of thing. And I think that's where, like I said earlier, it's the insights, the bits that we miss, is where AI can be super useful. So collecting the data and going like, what is the new perspective I'm missing? And that's, I'm still early with experimenting with this. I'm not committed to saying like everyone needs to use this tool, but it's certainly something worthwhile exploring for sure. I've been pleased with like what I've seen so far.
And isn't that about kind of finding the tools where it can support you in areas perhaps you're not so strong in, or where you do need to have support in as well, like overcoming that blank page or creating something that then you can dive into as well. So using it for analytics isn't something that I've done yet, but I would love to have some support with kind of interrogating and also getting those different views on, well, I'm seeing this in there, but something else is seeing something different.
Definitely. Yeah, I'm totally with you on that. Something else that actually I didn't open this as a tab, so I need to make sure I get on it. So this product I've been using for a while and I really do like it. It's as we're talking about LinkedIn, we're on a LinkedIn Live, so let's talk about some LinkedIn tools. So it's called Taplio. Like this is just the free version. So I get a whole bunch of analytics on the right-hand side for my personal account, which I love because it's very hard to find good tools around your personal account. But this inspiration tab is awesome. So so here, as you can see, because I'm too tight, I'm not paying for it yet, but in the trial, I was getting loads of inspiration, AI generated inspiration for like the industry, like social media marketing and data and analytics and stuff that I enjoy talking about. And the inspiration wasn't always bang on, but it certainly did unlock when I had like, completely devoid of ideas, which we've seen in a few commenters have said that. I found it really good as like, rather than just browsing, LinkedIn and just trying to find like, what do I want to talk about? I found that kind of unlocked some ideation. So Taplio is definitely one I can vouch for as a good product. Now, this is the one I'm most excited about. I've heard this mentioned from a few people that would work with Adobe, and I thought this is what we need, right? And certainly for the type of things, certainly Luan, the things that you and I create, we typically create long form content like this, right? So whether it's a LinkedIn Live, or it's a podcast, webinar, whatever it might be. So this app reports that if you can just ping any link, whether it's a Zoom recording, a Google Drive, a YouTube link, whatever. So this was a podcast I was on. It was a video podcast I was on a little while ago. It was an hour-long podcast, and it's come up with 30 ideas. Basically, it said, what do you want us to find in this? Because I wanted to have like this week's content that I was going to be focusing on all about B2B orientated social media. We touched on B2B quite a lot. So basically what this does is then puts together clips relative to these particular segments. So gives you some scores as to how accurate it is. But it also, and that's the bit that kind of blows my mind, all of the cuts are impeccable. Like it's not just taking like one segment, it's sticking them together. And it's also using like little emojis and doing all the subtitles. Blew my flipping mind. And suddenly I was like, that absolutely unlocks a huge amount of content creation burden for me personally. And also, if you think about it in a wider business context, it's not like we're short of content in many organizations. It's just a huge lift to repurpose it. So I'm super excited about the opportunities like here of like repurposing content, giving it a second life, and being able to find lots of different ways to promote a piece of content, be it the podcast, webinar, whatever, using a whole number of different content formats. So Sounds like I work for this company. I don't, but it's very cool.
I've seen some of these and I listened to the podcast, and it was a brilliant session. My question here is, what came into my mind there is being able to repurpose things quicker and easier. Amazing. We always want to do that, particularly if we're kind of, creating longer form content. We kind of go, we know we should, but sometimes it's a challenge to do it. Do you think, Andy, kind of moving forward, there's always these conversations around quantity of content out there and quality. And I guess one of the balances we need to make is all these tools are there to help us come up with more ideas and to repurpose. Are people going to create more stuff and more noise, or actually do we need to have a mindset where we're going, this can help us create more, but we need to make sure that it's top quality? There's a bit of a balance coming into play for me there.
There is definitely a balance, for sure. I think things that make me feel comfortable about things like this is that we know the core content is good, right? Because we know that the message is on point and what we're trying to do. We're just finding different ways to explain it. So for me, I find this this is like the best use of AI, doing the heavy lifting stuff, the grunt work that we really don't want to do because it's a waste of human potential, like sifting through like your Otter transcripts and then kind of finding the little cut. AI should just take that burden away. But the point about like increasing content velocity for content's sake, that's a real issue. And I have seen some things that have made me pretty concerned, feel kind of like the feeling of ick inside, where I've seen lots of people talking about like a particular workflow that goes like this: scrape trending content data from TikTok, feed that into like ChatGPT, and ask ChatGPT to analyze that, and then come back with like the top 10 most viral moments from. Then use a video script generator, like the one on CapCut. Like CapCut have just released this kind of stuff, so you can generate a script from a prompt, and then you can even get like an AI generated presenter to talk through it all. So basically, doing that, you could create 100 videos in 10 minutes, maybe. Like that for me is like, I mean, you get a lot of content done, you can tick the box quickly, but like, it makes me feel very uncomfortable, as someone that cares deeply about like brand value, authenticity, and that kind of thing. Yeah, that feels kind of hacky right now. But anyway, that's just my own perspective.
Well, I think this brings us back to, actually, this is a comment, Andy, I don't know if you remember it, that you put in my book about why do we need to understand what has happened in social media before, because it kind of keeps iterating, doesn't it? And I think for me, this comes back to like all those automation tools that we see, and insert company name and name here. I don't use automation tools for engagement, messaging. I personalize all my own content, and I do that. So I think we're kind of moving into starting to wrap up of like, there is lots of opportunities. These are awesome tools to start thinking about how can we do more with the resources and the time we have on productivity. But at the same time, there are risks to automating comments, and I'm sure I've spotted people's posts on LinkedIn going, I know you didn't write that, I know that's a ChatGPT output, that just isn't your style. So I think it's coming back to, there is loads of opportunities. AI is changing the world, it's changing marketing, it's changing social media marketing, content strategy, tactics, all of those things. But there are some icks that we will all start spotting and feeling uncomfortable with
definitely
as we progress.
It's really well put. Conscious of time, because we can really quickly. I'm gonna touch on a couple of things. I touched on this earlier anyway, but and this is just ChatGPT, the free one. Custom instructions helps you get better responses. I think this is a really good thing about like brand values, tone of voice, that kind of thing, just to help. If you know that you're using this quite regularly to get ideas, this can be super useful. Also, we've spoken about like security is a concern for sure, particularly in the case of if you're going to be using like ChatGPT or GPT-4 or whatever to generate any insights from your own proprietary data. That's definitely a concern. but ChatGPT, or OpenAI rather, need to use these words correctly. OpenAI have launched their enterprise grade version of ChatGPT, and that then gets a lot more comfortable for enterprises to use, because they know that the data is secure. So I just want to kind of call this one out, because there's been a lot of recognition around this, people sharing proprietary data through ChatGPT, but the enterprise version does stop that from happening. But of course, I don't actually know what the cost is, and I imagine it's probably kind of expensive, given it's got contact
sales.
Yeah, you know you're going to be in for it then. But on that point, and I think they've just renamed this as well. So this is on the paid version, so ChatGPT 4 or ChatGPT Plus, whatever you want to call it. Advanced data analysis is probably the thing that's most worth paying for, because that's, you called this one out earlier, Luan, about like the importance of being able to get insights from data. So what you can do with this is, let's say, Instagram and Facebook are your main two platforms that you want to grow on. Literally just export your last year's worth of data, of insights from both those platforms, put it on one spreadsheet, upload it into advanced data analysis, and ask questions about it. Like, what was the top performing post? What's the best time to post? What words did I use that were most effective? Like, what format were the posts that were most effective? Where do you see? And even those things like where do you see we have gaps? What should I do better for next time? Those things is like absolute gold. And that's where I think there's a huge amount of opportunity. Again, like taking a lot of the heavy lifting away from ourselves, and using, right back to your point again, Luan, using like these AI tools as a way of, like, we've got a colleague that can do all of the heavy lifting, the manual labor of going through all of these numbers and finding those insights for you. And I think that's going to be super powerful. And I don't see too many people talking about this in the social media space. So I like this one a lot. Carry on.
I was just going to say, what popped into my mind then is that what this is doing is, what has happened throughout our careers, and how we learn and what we're doing is changing our skill sets as well, isn't it? While it's able to, we're finding tools that take off some of the workload with some areas. What this means to us as business owners, business leaders, marketers, is that we have to change our own skill sets. And your points in these ones is we need to become better at asking questions. We need to know what we're looking for, because it is that, my language, if you don't ask it the right questions, shit in, shit out. So, we have to be better at asking questions and knowing what we're looking for, because this information overload of, there is now so much available all the time, so many tools, so much data. What is it we want to know? And what we want to know is something that's going to give us insights to improve on our performance and to grow. So our skill, as we find these tools, opportunities and risks, we're actually changing out and evolving our own skill sets and our thinking processes as well.
Such a good point. Yeah. I'm going to touch on two last points, then we're going to do some questions, and we'll do a bit of the kind of the concerns and considerations. I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about what we're working on at Adobe, I think.
Go for it.
So this, if you're familiar with Adobe Firefly, it's entirely free, but we've just come out with a whole brand new image model too. So you'll notice the quality is just absolutely next level. But the things that I particularly like, so I'm going to generate something 3D. I'm going to do a fruit bowl. Or if I could spell bowl, would be amazing. And generate that. But some of the things that are particularly useful, like you can now use a reference image. So if you want to get things that are particularly on brand, you can then use a reference image, which will take your prompt and then make it in whatever is most appropriate for your brand. And also the things that I also like in the kind of advanced settings here, we can exclude certain things from our image too. So if we keep on getting a fruit bowl with grapes and we don't want that, we can just remove those too. So lots of different ways we can apply different effects and get things looking like we're on brand too. So, and as you can see, the fidelity of the outputs are getting so much better. All that entirely free to use. Head to like firefly.adobe.com. There's some other cool stuff that I potentially use more than text to image, which is what we just went through. I'm sure you're familiar, like Generative, Fill, super useful. So you want to change any element in a photo, you want to add something to the background, you want to have something appear like it's somewhere else. All of that's now possible, and you can do all that for free in Adobe Express too, which is all integrated with the social media stuff too. So there's quite a lot. We've got a long way to go. Still a lot more to do, but quite a lot of the kind of, again, heavy lifting, ideation, creation, editing your images in a really easy way, where it's just like, hey, I just want to have bits appear or bits to go away from my from the image that I'm using. All of that's now possible too. So yeah, lots of good stuff, loads of tools, and a lot of that from an Adobe perspective is all free to use as well, which is super valuable. But yeah, I think
amazing.
Given we only got 50 minutes left, I'm going to stop sharing.
Yeah. I think there's something, we have talked about the opportunities and loads of tools, and is it that time of year, beginning of November, where I'm starting that kind of between Christmas and New Year? These are things I'd like to research and take some time to have a look at. There's something in this around, and I've seen this on some people's posts this week of like, this image was created with AI, you would never know. Is there something about making sure that we are open, honest, and transparent about our use of AI tools as well?
The thing, without wanting to sound like an Adobe fanboy here, to be honest, this is where Adobe are so good with this, because well, two primary things. So one, Firefly is only trained on licensed content, so everything is permissioned, and that is a huge thing we need to consider when we're generating images elsewhere or videos elsewhere, because it's trained on stuff, anything, right? So there's a huge like copyright concern there that we're thinking about. And then point two is like, you can look this up too as well, for content authenticity initiative, which is something that Adobe's was leading and has been subscribed to with lots of other people, which means everything that's generated with AI is tagged. All of the metadata for that image is tagged relative to this image was generated with AI. So we can see the kind of through line of the authenticity of a certain image, which is super useful, because I think that is one of the things that concerns most people, right? Deep fakes and all that kind of stuff. I shudder to think some of the impact that can have. I
mean, I've certainly been doing it since I've been using the tools. If I've used it to generate something that I'm working on with a client, I have added a note saying, just to let you know, this is what we've used. And uploading my book files to Amazon, there was even a tick box saying, not as if it was like you can't upload it if you've used AI, but they're starting to collect information around are authors using AI as part of their manuscript. And I would hopefully, that is a concern. And I just wanted to, I'll pop the link in afterwards. I am seeing some comments on different screens. I don't think we're going to pick them all up. So I think Andy and I will spend some time after we're live going through the comments and seeing what we can answer for you. But I think if I wrap this back to one of my very first LinkedIn Lives in the series, talking about legal issues as well, I think this is something that is so important for you as a marketer, a leader, whoever's watching this, to go, great, there's some tools here that can help me my productivity. Perhaps we need some guidelines for internal use around this, part of your social media policy, part of your ways of working. Cambridge University have recently shared theirs as part of what the Russell Group of universities are doing. I know someone's talked in here about academic system and assignments, that it's part of that consideration as well. We cannot ignore this. It is here. There is opportunities and risks, but I think it's really exciting.
It is definitely exciting. There are very real risks, but we can manage them, right? We can take the steps appropriately. That's a really good. Did you share the link in the comments, Luan, to the that Cambridge?
No, I will pop it in there right now. I have a load of links ready. So
I'm just going to address Fraser's question really quickly. It's good to hear from you, Fraser. Yes, so we are working on the text creation as well, AI generated text creation. So stay tuned. I might drop you an email directly. Cool. Lots more coming.
Yeah, so there is lots of questions, but I'm just going to pick comments, greenwashing, bias, those as well. Someone's Will the recording be available? Yes, as soon as we finish. If you're watching this live, if you missed the beginning, it will churn for a few seconds and then it will be available. Someone has said, I think maybe we both wrap up on this, if there was just one tool you could use for the next month, what would it be?
I think given what I was just saying, for my own personal use and what I need right now, I can't really get away from Opus that we were just talking about, because content repurposing of my long form content is just such a crucial part of how I personally do it. So that's what I wouldn't get rid of. What about you?
I'm still in writing mode. I need a research assistant. I need a colleague to share ideas. So I'm going to, until Christmas, stick with ChatGPT and Bard writing tools. But there is certainly a list that I'm going to check out before next year. And I think Opus will be the first one that I experiment with.
Did you, there was a question about like ChatGPT versus Bard. I don't use Bard personally. So you're in a better place to say that.
I found it different, and again, what we do as testers is kind of put the same thing into each one. I found for me that ChatGPT is much more about kind of, it replies as writing like a blog or an article or a response, whereas I asked it, I'm doing a presentation next week on social media do's and don'ts. So I put into Bard, I'm doing a presentation next week on social media do's and don'ts. What would you recommend I include? And what Bard did was not only kind of give me the response, but it then gave me presentation tips as well. So it picked out what the purpose was and then said, make sure you rehearse and, and try this and, and good luck with your presentation. So I think I found Bard a little bit more intuitive around the reading the question and what it was all about. Whereas for me, ChatGPT kind of churns out text quite quickly and is getting a little bit similar.
That's really interesting.
So I'm going to use them both, but depending on the context. And I think wrapping up our answers to all these trends, feature changes, is you've got to test and learn and see what works for you. You will like a tool better than I like a tool just because of the way that we work and the way that we think. You've got to try and test them out for yourself and see which one works for you. That's Andy, thank you. I love these sessions. If you don't know, Andy and I do these every month, and we don't prepare them in what are we going to really talk about or what do you think about it. It is completely live, questioning each other and prompting each other. So hopefully just sitting and listening to two people chat away about one of the hottest topics of this year has been useful for you. I'm sure we will both, we'll be in the comments later. We'll see what you're saying. Send messages from humans. There won't be any AI chatbots in my responses.
Yeah, but there's a lot of questions that need responses too. So if you give us to get through those today, we'll be on it. But thank you so much for taking the time. Like Luan said, we're all students here. We're all trying to figure out the best way. So being open-minded, learning what we can, and also being cognizant of some of the other impacts, because like I said, it's not all rosy. There are things that we do need to be realistic and consider. But I still maintain a lot of enthusiasm and excitement for what we can do overall. And whilst there is always, like any big technological change will have some economic impact, typically the economic impact post technological change is usually advanced. So I'm an optimist in this space, but hey, that's just my perspective. Either way, off to try some new tools, I think.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you soon.
Thanks so much. Bye-bye.